Hey Collective, welcome back to the channel. So today is going to be an intuitive interpretation based off of some of the reoccurring symbolic patterns that I've been noticing in the Nancy Guthrie case. So these are going to be themes that continue to resurface, whether they are like symbolic, literal. This energy hasn't shifted much, but I am observing some repetition in some of the messaging. Okay, so this is day 12 still. We're not here for the gossip. We're not here for entertainment necessarily either. I do want this to be a little bit more focused on what's still coming up in the Nancy Guthrie case and in her energy specifically. Some of this may be stuff that hasn't surfaced yet officially. This could also be things that are bubbling underneath. And it can also be contributing to the pressure that's currently building behind the scenes. Okay. So I do know that I am feeling a couple of things immediately. Um, as you see, I do have a spread, and this is some of the stuff that has come out in the reading specifically from Nancy. Okay. And I say from Nancy because these cards are grayed out as quotes. So I wrote them in gray as quotes to kind of signal different moments when there may be a certain break or a specific message. Okay. Now, when I'm feeling these three things, um, well, let me just say, it does feel like there's a little bit of a delayed exposure, and I'm talking about more so the overall. And then I'm going to get into Nancy's energy, and then we may do a little bit of questioning towards the end. So stay towards the end, okay? Um, there is a little bit of like a delayed exposure element here, and I think that's what we have finally confirmed. The lack of communication um and official statements on what is going on as far as the status of the case, I think it's drove me to this point of creating this kind of like reading. There does seem to be something about like a protective lie. Somebody could be protecting a lie of some sort. And then another thing is like it's something to do with paperwork, legal work, something legal paperwork. It doesn't feel cold, it just feels like this whole thing has officially stalled. Now, this is something that I feel like I was getting warned about for the past 3 days. Go back to those readings if you have not. Um, if you have not already, I do have a full series on this. And I have been covering the case in real time. So it is helpful to kind of go back and see what pops up and what is to come. Now, um, I was also taking note of the intuitive downloads that I was getting. Remember, I mentioned something about like legal paperwork. So it felt like there's like a folder, okay? Not digital. This felt physical, okay? Cream colored, bent at the edges. It kind of just was like the feeling that I got with it was about like reports that weren't filed properly, maybe statements that were adjusted. Remember, certain things came up about an alibi, someone misspeaking or telling the wrong thing, and it got confirmed. Um, or this could be just information that was considered irrelevant at the time. So it feels like Spirit is saying it wasn't irrelevant, it just wasn't it was inconvenient at the time, whatever it is. Okay. So um let's move strictly into Nancy's energy. From what I interpreted, the energy coming through is not chaotic at all. Okay. She feels very calm, very observant, almost like patient. Okay. Which tells me something important. When spirit's energy kind of feels frantic, there may be a sense of urgency there, right? But when it feels calm, it may mean something about like timing being of the essence, time sensitive information, time sensitive movement. So it's definitely about that. Okay. Now, what's still coming up? The core message here, I do feel like something that was once dismissed is going to be reconsidered. Remember, I've been talking about this possibly going into a cold case and why. We'll talk about it a little bit more, but go back to the other readings. It's like I spill tea without really understanding the full connection until maybe the next day. So, um, it feels like it won't come from like this dramatic reveal, maybe. It may come from like a re-examination. We do know that there's a lot of movement going on in the sheriff's office, and I told you, go back to my video. I told you it was going to turn into not only a media circus, but I said that there was going to be some issue with jurisdiction. So if there's issue with jurisdiction and movement and who's claiming leadership of what, when and how, we're running out of time. We're losing a lot of time, okay? So it feels like there's going to be a lot of reviewing, re-reading, re-listening. This feels very procedural, and I think if we end up in Mercury retrograde, which I feel like is supposed to be coming up, why does it feel like someone confirm in the comments to me? Let me know. Am I off on the Mercury retrograde thing? I would look it up, but I'm just trying to stay in the flow right now. Um, the final transmission, I feel like it's something about like I keep hearing um look again, look closely, not look harder. It's like look again. It's like look again, ask again. So, um, I do have some questions for spirit. We'll see how this goes because I need this to kind of go like quickly. Not because I'm trying to rush through it, but just because like I do have other assignments I need to get to in life. And then I also do have other videos planned for this, and I need to do it in a timely fashion so that I can stay up to date. If that's the only way that I'll be able to push out these videos in real time. Okay, so the first card, let's maximize this a bit so you guys can see. So the first card was I knew them well. This was so random, but totally not because I had just finished a reading um on this situation, and it was previously mentioned something about an argument in the middle of a storm with a business rival. Okay. Go back to that reading where I was talking about Glinda and Alphaba. Name something you said in an argument that you wish you could take back. It feels like somebody wants to take back something that they said. Remember, I said somebody spoke out of turn, but this also feels like somebody misspoke or spoke their true feelings, and someone really got the gist of how they really feel. It's something about that. Now, we have this contracted betrayal here at the center of the reading. This is at the top of the cards as far as like Nancy's voice. She is trying to reveal something big here with this contracted betrayal. Subsurface subsurface density changes is also here, and I'm wondering if this has to do with like location, locating certain things. Like, is this about physical terrain, or if this is something about like talking about what's underneath the surface, like things change when you look underneath the surface. Oh, things change when you look underneath the surface. Okay. Okay, but this is what is going to be tricky. I think what's tricky about this case is the fact that we're going to have a scapegoat. We are going to have people to blame this for, but there's going to be a shadowy figure or group, a set of people that are still going to be um, basically running the show. And this may spread to another situation. I do not think that this is isolated, but let's just stay focused to what Nancy has to say. Contracted betrayal. I said behavior. Something could be significant about someone's behavior. They were jealous. See? Okay. Nancy would know. She would know. Just think about the words that are coming out and how she would know how this would be relevant to this case, okay? Their guilt is loud. Don't believe the official story. That's where I said something about like the surface. Okay. This was not random. This was not random. That should go where don't believe the official story. Now, this is where it gets so interesting to me. Hold on, I hope you guys can see. I left signs everywhere. We're gonna do a video on like the evidence that I've collected in terms of like location and discovery. This may be relevant to the case. We're not saying that is 100% fact, but we are trying to assist in moving the energy in the process of this case and helping to kind of like uncover the truth about it. She seems to have left a lot of signs everywhere because maybe she already felt or knew something was going to go left, or she had an idea about it's something about, not that she could have planned something, but I don't know. Anyway, soul saw what the body couldn't. This is what I mean about like her being around the energy of this case. Um Look at my journal. A child saw everything. A child saw everything. And this is okay. So not only does Nancy almost kind of give off this energy of like her being, she's she's talking about Alphaba, okay? We'll just call her Alphaba for now. She's talking about Alphaba, but it was more in reference to the betrayal. I felt like was more in reference to Savannah. Again, everybody keeps centering this conversation and this story around Savannah because of her position in society. But we do know that there is something underneath the surface that everybody has to look at in many ways. Okay. So that could be in multiple forms. One, in the way of like the case itself, and then two, from the standpoint of like, um looking at the actual story. Okay, don't believe the official story. Subsurface density, this was not random. Okay, now I fought back. We're going to put their guilt is loud over here. I fought back is here. So Nancy could have either put up a fight physically, or there could have just been more of a figurative fight, because we do know that she was mobile technically. So you know, they summoned something that they couldn't control. This is what is kind of sticking out to me a lot, because I feel like this has to do with, if this was a contracted betrayal, right? And you thought you were going to be getting away with something, and you probably involved or connected yourself with an association that may have some teeth or may have a lot of pull in certain institutions. And I don't think whoever this person is, that they had like a clue of what could happen if things went left. I mean, I think that they were warned. It's almost like they knew what the risk would be, but I don't think that they felt like it would happen because of who was involved, or because of whatever it is that they were doing. My body tells the truth. My body tells the truth. I fought back is here. So there could be something as far as like her body that is significant. This does feel like a piece of evidence, or maybe the autopsy. I do know that in that discovery pile that we'll get into, there was something about an inconclusive autopsy. Um that goes into so many different things, like whatever. I'll leave that for there, but my spirit won't rest. Follow the money. Follow the money. I tried to warn them before it happened. Okay, tried to warn who is an important element. They took something from me. Okay. I feel like that goes good with follow the money. Find the item I hid. There were spiritual contracts involved. This could be figurative or literal. Okay. Then we have spiritual interference. delayed justice. Okay, so spiritual interference, delayed justice. I feel like this is like either dark forces interfering and trying to um this could be that corrupt official that's trying to delay the process of certain things or to create the stall, to put a dent, throw a monkey wrench into something. Like that's what it feels like. But at the end of the day, this is the final message that Nancy seems to be wanting to say, that this was about this. And I'm just going to leave it kind of like there, as far as like, I don't want to say that out loud just yet for a couple of reasons. But anyway, let's get into what piece of evidence was overlooked. I'm going to clarify this pile right here. What piece of evidence was overlooked? Okay. The hand. Something about the hand could be significant. Or about caregiving. Masculine energy is here, speaking up. So there could be something about a man saying something, a male energy saying something. Um, I did say something earlier about like energy bubbling over. Somebody's pride could be in the way of this situation, or mm, something to do with the hand, though. Definitely something to do with the hand. And then we have plant. Okay, so this could have something to do with okay, creating beauty in small places, but I'm hearing finding beauty in small places, or like the beauty of small things. Finding something about what piece of evidence was overlooked due to assumption. Maybe okay, the piece of evidence that may have been overlooked was maybe from the video. Remember the plant that the suspect put up to the camera, even though I still feel like there's some discrepancies about when he went up to the camera and for what. Was that like the point of entry, or did he even go in the house? But anyway, that's besides the point. Something about the plant. Maybe they didn't take samples of the plant. That would be crazy. Maybe the brush is gone. Maybe somebody took, maybe there was, anyway, I'm not going to speculate too much. Anyway, who holds information? Who holds information that they don't realize is important? All right. The shrimp and the deer. Okay. Flexibility, going with the current, defensiveness. Okay. So somebody who contracted this is feeling like, okay, they left something out. I said this already. They hold information that somebody's acting like they didn't have information that was important, but it definitely was. Something about being alerted, alertness, being aware. Maybe she didn't know, acting like she didn't know. That could be acting like she doesn't know. Anyway, what happened in the missing time window? What happened in the missing time window? I'm going to clarify that here with the spiritual interference, delayed justice. What happened in the missing time window? What happened in the missing time window? Ooh. A web, fate, manipulation, something in the dark, child. The web and the moon, this is a terrible combination, I feel like. Feminine energy, dark feminine energy at that. Something happened with the missing time window, and it's because of this person. Okay. Um, was there outside influence shaping the narrative? We're going to clarify that here with the don't believe the official story. Was there outside influence shaping the narrative? Hmm. Defense, discipline, fighting for beliefs, loyalty, but it's a soldier. It's like outside influences are institutional, official, they have a certain level of authority. All right. What is the truth trying to surface next? What's the truth trying to surface next? What is the truth trying to surface next? I'm going to clarify this card here with what is the truth trying to surface next. Mm. All right, we have a fish, something being caught. This could also have something to do with the subconscious, or flowing in a certain direction, something found being in the water. Something found in the water, near the water. Look at the mountains. Arizona has a lot of mountains. Okay. Divine feminine here. Okay. So this is like they caught the divine feminine, which would be, or they're trying to catch the divine feminine. What is this? The heart and the ladder. The heart. What did I tell you about this case? I said this case was going to be a emotional trigger, and it was funny that the heart is associated with the whole thing. There's the hook of the pacemaker and the mom. All that is a very emotional story. Okay. And vulnerability is also here. She's ascended. Okay. I want to stop. I have two last questions and then I am out. All right. What role does transportation or movement play in this area, in this case? What role does transportation or movement play in this case? I'm gonna clarify. I'm gonna clarify my spirit won't rest pile. What role does transportation or movement play in this case? What role does transportation or movement play in this case? Okay, I think I'm done with this deck, but just give me one card. What role does transportation or movement play in this case? Okay, oddly, I don't know what happened, but it's like ever so I don't know what is going on. Sometimes when I'm doing certain readings, it feels like I get all these weird technical difficulties. I feel like Mercury retrograde is starting. It has to be. Anyway, so what did we say? What role does transportation or movement play in this case? All right. Influence or innocence. So this is a bonnet. It looks like it reminds you of like grandma. Childhood, divine protection, vulnerability. So, um, what role does transportation or movement play in this case? I'm gonna tell you what my first thought is. This is making me think about the vulnerable, and children and old people happen to be the most vulnerable, right? And we know the tunnel situation is a thing. I feel like I've been picking up on this energy of her possibly being transported in the tunnels where the children are and stuff, but I don't know. Okay, so let's see. I do want to clarify this little cluster right here with the web and the moon, because this has to do with spiritual justice. Is justice delayed or redirected? Because we do know that there was some type of interference, but what is that outcome? Because I It is so hard to kind of like hold back my full opinion sometimes in these readings. Is justice delayed or redirected? Child is here. See, I don't understand. And then with the moon and the child, doesn't this look crazy? Like the energy of moon, the child, and the this spider. And then we just had the little bonnet situation with the grandma. Because think about it also, the grandma, the elderly can be used for like organ harvesting. I've been talking about this. I mentioned it briefly in one of these readings. I can't remember. But anyway, the same thing can go for children, but the children last longer. I know I'm saying this so matter of factly. I'm trying not to be crass about it, but you know, we already know what the story is right now. Okay. We're trying to get to uncovering it. So the webs in the moon with the child and the grandma, it's like she was transported at night, caught up in a web, caught up in like even you can't get out of a spider's web if you are a vulnerable animal, a vulnerable insect, I mean, right? So they got her caught up in a web. And when you think about a web, you think about like a network. Okay. A network. Look at all of that. Don't that look like tunnels? That looks like a tunnel. I'm telling you, she might be in a freaking tunnel. And there's a situation brewing in the detective's office, I mean in the sheriff's office, where the guy, and this was reported before in the beginning, and I'm going to get into it more when I get into what's going on as far as the corruption. But there was something about the sheriff nanos calling for a demotion of the air patrol guy. So now he was staying on the ground at the time. And that had been like, I need to find out exactly how long he was demoted, like between the time that he got demoted and then the case. Like I feel like there's some discrepancy, and the reason why they didn't want air patrol is because they would have been able to find them or see them moving from one direction to the next. I do feel like those mountains are like secret doors, so they may have an entrance somewhere, or there could be something underground for real. But that surface density changes thing, all of that. And now that's making me think of like even air level, oxygen level, oxygen level. Okay, anyway. Let's get up out of here. Let's get up out of here. um I think I want to, yeah, I think I'm gonna leave it here. I have had enough. So if you guys have been following this series with me, comment down below what part of the case has never sat right with you since day one, like, or since whenever you started following this story with Nancy. What are your opinions on the whole situation? Tomorrow, day 13, we may look at the timeline specifically. Um, Yeah. So stay grounded, stay discerning. This is Karmic Central. See you in the next one.